the US has always been an ambition for me to launch a business into, for a few reasons. One, the market is massive compared to the UK. But also, I think the kind of US optimism and buzz and energy is a real draw for me. I think the Labour government are making it incredibly hard to want to build and scale and hire people and incentivize entrepreneurs to build businesses. And I pitched the owner of the business and said, this is what I was going to do. And he said, no, our software is brilliant. We don't need implementation partners. And I said, okay, well, I'm probably going to crack on, rock up wherever you sell into, and then supply a team to implement. And that's exactly what I did. And we wrote £1 million worth of business in the first year. And I got sober by asking for help and being shown a different way. And there was a lot of work I had to do as an individual there. It is, without a shadow of a doubt, the greatest thing I've ever done in my entire life. It's also one of the hardest. One of the pieces of advice I got when I first came in was get yourself a suit. And I thought, those cheeky bastards think that I'm scruffy. But what they were referring to was get yourself a suit because you're going to be going to a lot of funerals. And I hadn't fully understood just how powerful that was going to be and just what a reality that was going to be. I buried my best mate, who was also my first sponsor, last April. And
jeez.
It was one of the fucking hardest things I've ever done in my entire life because I loved him a lot.
I want to talk a little bit more about how kind of giving back is a theme that sort of flows through your work and your life, because a lot of the work that you've done in business has been in healthcare. And I know that's something that's quite close to your heart. So what is it about healthcare, and particularly the work that you've done with the NHS, which has been, what has drawn you into that?
I feel like I'm going out the frying pan into the fire. We've gone from one emotional subject to another. But let me see if I can answer that and remain semi-composed. So my big love affair with healthcare comes from my business has always made sense. And whether it is large companies or smaller companies, I just have always innately known what needs to happen. And when my stepdaughter Charlotte was 14, she got sick with meningococcal septicemia, and she is a triple amputee as a result. Going through that process with Charlotte, and Charlotte was in hospital for about a year, almost solidly, ICU for months on end, multiple different hospitals, and millions of pounds spent on her care.
I think you mentioned over 100 procedures as well.
Hundreds of procedures, and life and God knows how many life-saving operations. But I think for me, having seen that happen, I will always feel that I have a debt that I would like to repay to the NHS for the care that Charlotte has received. And I was utterly blown away by how she was cared for, how she was kept alive. And that story still continues. She's had her second kidney transplant recently. She is, we are trying to do the math here. We're a number of years on. Charlotte's 30. God, she's going to listen to this and kick off. 31, I think. So, we're years on. But she still is regularly in the hospital for varying bits and pieces. She was on dialysis for years in between the first and the second kidney transplant. So that experience for me made me feel incredibly strongly that I wanted to give back. And really, I went from working at the health regulator. So I led a business transformation at the health regulator. Uh, and I was then offered a role with NHS.UK to lead the NHS app and all of that. And for me, that was, I mean, it was perfect timing because my head was clear enough to be picking up a role like that. But also, I was desperate to build a legacy and give back.
And give me a sense. I mean, it's crazy to go through. First of all, it feels like the care that she received was against the odds. You know, to go through something like that, triple amputee, you only kind of go through those. You only get to that stage if you are really on the edge,
Yep.
right? To have that level of treatment. So it sounds like what you witnessed was like just a 1 in a million almost level of.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I mean, when we first had the phone call when Charlotte was sick, the hospital said it's 50-50, get up here. And we were 200 miles away. We were in London. Hospital was up in Stoke-on-Trent, 188 miles to be precise. And hospitals do not put a call in and say it's 50-50. That is not a common occurrence. Even on the journey up, those odds were getting less in Charlotte's favour. So all of it she's a miracle because people just do not survive what she went through, and it was so complex in way of trying to manage the septicemia. With septicemia, of course, your organs start shutting down. Well, not of course, but they do. And you end up losing body parts because they die. That's what happens with the septicemia. And I mean, it's almost incomprehensible to try and describe. It was, I don't like a horror film.
14, 14, 15 as well.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, I don't know if it does make it worse. It's kind of like unfair to say that, but someone like at that vulnerable age, and particularly a girl, I think, going
Yeah.
through that, it just has that extra level of like inconceivable, I think, to it. And how old would you have been at the time? You were running your first business around this time, right?
So I would have been early 20s. So I met Charlotte's mum at 24. Yeah. So I would have been early mid 20s, because it was within 12 months of meeting Jane. So yeah, I would have been about 25. And yeah, I mean, it was completely incomprehensible, the whole thing. And yeah, it's very hard almost to recall because I think probably there's some self-preservation around some aspects of it. But we were at the hospital in North Staffordshire for a number of weeks. It was also a hot summer, which is not a common occurrence in North Staffordshire. I was born nearby. So it was mad. We had one room that we would sleep in. Myself, Jane, my partner, Sophie, Charlotte's sister, my stepdaughter, and Charlotte's father, Joseph. And we were just 24 hours a day in ICU, and still smoking at that time. Jesus, I dread to think how many cigarettes, but you're just in a constant state of fear, and not a normal level. I mean, I dread to think my blood pressure was at that point. But I mean, Charlotte clearly is the one who went through the trauma, but it has a huge impact. It had, and it continues to have a huge impact on all of us because you see things that you should never see. We had multiple times that we were told, prepare for the worst. And
How do
then
you cope with being in a state like that for such a prolonged time?
I'm not sure you actively choose to cope. I think you're on a conveyor belt and you either fucking launch off the side, and I don't know what that looks like, or you just let it carry on. And it was undoubtedly the highest stress for the longest period of time I've ever felt in my life. Um, you're in a constant state of fight or flight, and it's everything's so heightened. Panic, just unadulterated panic and fear, and it was fucking brutal.
I mean, I was assuming that throughout a lot of this, Charlotte would have been like in a coma.
Charlotte was in a medical coma, yeah.
Okay. And so what I'm assuming that was going on for a long period of time. When does she come round and understand what's happened?
So first hospital was North Staffordshire, and they have to treat septicemia. You have to pump a lot of fluid into the body to try and prevent you losing limbs. So she was a bigger version of herself, which was odd to see. We had over 20 clinicians around the bed at that hospital, 24 hours a day. I'm not sure I remember whether she was compos mentis at that hospital, to be honest. We were there for a number of weeks, but that was trying to keep her alive. And yeah, that I don't think she was I don't think she was compos mentis at all. The time that I can remember, by the time we were at Great Ormond Street was second, and then a Burns unit at Broomfield was third, Broomfield and Essex. I definitely remember a compos mentis at Great Ormond Street, but they're having the conversation, and that was Jane, not me, having the conversation about what had happened to her. I think my mind has blocked that out, if I'm honest. I can remember watching films on this ridiculous portable TV, and Charlotte wanted to keep watching the same fucking Disney films, and I hate a Disney film. Can't stand animation, and I'm like, oh my god, Jane, I can't watch another one of these. But it was days went slow because you got 24 hours, and whoever it was just time stood still, and it felt weird that the rest of the world went ahead during that period of time. That
Time
felt
sort of like,
really weird to me. I
yeah.
was like, how can things move forward when we're in this nightmarish bubble? And it was very hard to comprehend.
How did you cope with running the business if you were at the hospital 24/7 in this insane amount of stress?
Badly. A lot of the business at that time was kind of central to me as well. We had developed the training academy and we developed the e-learning. So my business partner at the time could move some of that stuff forward and did, but that forced my hand on selling the assets of the business because I needed to be there to support Jane, especially in the interim period. Jane was supporting Charlotte, I was supporting Jane, and managing the communication with everybody as well, with family, with friends. And that's mental because you've got, I mean, this is probably pre WhatsApp, it almost must have been. But, you're running insane communications for weeks on end through the fucking night with loads of people on individual SMSs. And, Jane couldn't deal and didn't want to deal with any of that. So I was sort of managing communication. So the bottom line is the business was about third or fourth priority. And
Yeah.
at the point that we had big opportunities coming in, I had to say they can either move without me or they can't move at all. And post Charlotte coming out of hospital, we took the opportunity to sell the assets. But it was, it just wasn't really on my radar because it couldn't be. And I don't regret that decision.
Yeah, of course. As you say, you're in it's almost like in a bubble, like you're in your own experience where time is just moving at you're just, yeah, everything else just collapses around you, I think, and it's almost bizarre that life is going on for other people as normal when you're.
Even when people came to the hospital, like mates, and they were talking about like life, I was like, I don't understand. It was like almost like they slipped into Cantonese or something. My brain couldn't comprehend that stuff was going on outside of those hospitals. But I think that's a self preservation as well, because it's a let's just shut everything down and just be here. Because the ability to cope under that stress. And I remember that feeling. That feeling went on for a long time, like way over a year, where the phone ringing, every fucking time the phone rang, it put the fear of God in me that it was the hospital saying, this is it, you've got to get here. And if phone calls came in late at night or the doorbell rang late at night, I can still feel that feeling. Wasn't a normal reaction to a fucking doorbell. I mean, I've never been a fan of doorbells, but it was like uber heightened. Do you know what I mean? It was
Yeah,
so magnified. It was like, heart is racing. It's like, yeah, awful.
I do
Fucking awful.
love, just on a lighter tone, that you just said never been a fan of doorbells.
I have never been a fan of doorbells, which is a very odd share, but in the grand scheme of this sharing, I think it probably lightens the load a little.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like what's amazing is go. I mean, it sounds like you had to really step up in a time where you were a bit of a wild child,
Yeah.
and a lot people deal with trauma in different ways. But the idea of taking that and being like, right, this is something that I need to do, and then going on to do all the incredible things that you did with the COVID and the NHS app and things like that, I think is, really applaudable.
I said to somebody the other day, if I never do anything useful ever again, the NHS app is it's good, and it has made a fundamental difference. So that doesn't mean that I can tool around in a hammock for the rest of my life, but I think if you're driven to make a difference, having the opportunity to go and do something like that really is, amazing.
Yeah, it just stands head and shoulders. I think when you can combine purpose and business success, it's like a heavenly mix. It leaves you feeling so full in so many different ways.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I do think there's certain points of people's lives where I mean, I often find I get one or two of the three, but trying to get all three combined is, hopefully in my future, we'll see.
Mm. I do struggle with that, I think, because I feel like I mean, actually, it's not just like that's the epitome of good. I feel like there's a lot of people, I'd say almost possibly the majority of entrepreneurs, or a good chunk of them, for whom morals, like that's what they're doing in the business, sitting right with them, is just not a concern at all. Like completely detached from it. And that's one of the things that I wouldn't say I struggle with it, because I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but I need to be completely at peace with what I'm doing in a business. Like how I'm making the money is so important. And I find that quite interesting.
Yeah, I get that, and I think I'm surrounded more so by founders who are impact and purpose driven, probably 80%, maybe even more. So for me, that balance is manageable. I am without a shadow of a doubt an out and out entrepreneur, and I like the commercial side of that. but I fucking love the impact. And that, that will always keep pulling me kind of back in, I think.
Hmm. Let's talk about impact then, because I know that right now and for the last couple of years, you've been running the Grafter. You've also been running a program that helps businesses across a few month period, kind of scale, and if they want to also prepare for exit, because it's something you should be doing anyway, even if you are not necessarily planning to exit shortly. So just tell me a bit about that, because I think as we've discussed so many times, there are so many people out there who will be your advisor for growth or exit, etc., and they're pitching their wares, and quite frankly they just haven't been through it. They haven't got on paper what you need to have. And also the other caveat is that even if you have been through it and you've done really well, teaching that, understanding all the points of why and how to structure things is also a separate skill. And I know those are two things that you combine at the Grafter.
For me, I wanted to build a methodology and share the kind of learning from my last couple of exits. But I also wanted to add into that, I wanted it peer reviewed by a raft of exited founders. And I then took a lot of the growth and revenue work that I've done in the last couple of years and previously to develop Grow, Raise, Exit. And we have had insane results. And I'll talk about those in a second, but I think we've had them because the methodology is fucking good. So it works and it's good. And it's been built by people who have been in the trenches and they want to impart that learning to others. So to your earlier point, an exited founder doesn't make an exiteer. And what I mean by that is you must be able to do consultancy, you must be able to coach, and you must have been in the trenches. So, it's a bit of a fucking unicorn because it's quite niche, having those three skills. Now, we can teach exited founders methodology relatively easily, but having those other skills is really key. And over the last 24 months, 41 companies have been through the methodology, and the results are insane. We have had 5 companies that have exited for 7 or 8 figures. We've had 6 companies double the revenue of the business within a 12-month period. We have just completed our first acquisition of a company for a client. The acquisition was £1 million acquisition. We did it in 10 days. And we did it because they needed to be on a framework to access a £5 million contract. So first acquisition in the bag, and every company that's been through the methodology has got an ROI within a 12-week period. So it really fucking works.
And the methodology is the program?
Methodology is, so it started out, it's evolved over the last 2 years. It started out as 250-page playbook, and then it became some video content that supported the playbook. Now it is, or it will be in a couple of weeks when we launch, 100-hour platform, digital platform, that allows you to do a diagnostic of your business and then go the whole way through learning how to grow your revenue, raise money, or prepare for an exit. And it has in there scenarios, case studies, templates, access to the network that we use for advisors. It's got the whole fucking lot in there. So we want to make that platform self-serve, available to the masses. So to date, we've worked with 41 companies, but for me, I want to launch a self-serve proposition so we can cast that net a lot wider.
Makes a lot of sense. And just for anyone that might be listening to this, what is the difference between the Grafter and the methodology, which I think is the Grow, Raise, Exit program?
So the Grafter is the company name, and the Grafter really refers to putting a shift in. And it's a term that we used to hear when we were kids from my parents. You're a grafter. Well, I didn't hear it that often when I was little, actually, but it refers to putting your shift in. And so my
Even though you were
parents.
running the Murphy Corporation.
Yeah, no, but I was causing them a lot of drama as well, Sally. So
How did I know
the
it came with drama? How did I know?
the yeah, I think the I guess the difference is the grafter being the name of the company, and the implication is the companies that come through are grafters, but the methodology is called grow, raise, exit. It is likely to need a rebrand relatively quickly because of the acquisition bit, and I'm debating whether transformation doesn't get wound in there. So it may become great. So the grow, raise, exit, acquire, transform. Who
Okay.
knows? We'll see.
But there are other ways. So there's the program that the business can go through as well, but you also provide, not everyone's working with you on that basis, consultancy services as well, right?
So we have consultancy services, but every engagement with a grafter starts with a business diagnostic. So we don't work with anybody unless we have done a full diagnostic of all parts of their business and, from a personal perspective, the founders and the management team if appropriate. Because the difference with us and other businesses in our space is we are interested in the business and in the personal. And if you don't tie those two together, you run the risk of transforming the business around people. And if we don't ask fundamental questions like, what the fuck are you doing this for? Then people never find the answers.
That actually leads me really well into exactly that point, because I know that you've spoken about people specifically. Let's just talk about exiting for a moment. I know it's also like scaling and things like that, but I think people are thinking of that bag of cash and not really understanding what they actually want out of the experience, right? Because the bag of cash is simply like a conduit to something else they think that will provide.
Yep.
I know that you said that one of the most significant parts of the process that you work through with business owners is that kind of that workshop that you do with them. Can you just like talk a little bit about that? 'Cause I think
Yeah, of course. So this bit for me is really, really important. And it is about asking and answering, and sometimes sitting alongside to support a founder to feel comfortable to answer some of these questions. So it is, what are you doing it for in the first place? You know, what does the future look like? What was the motivation on building any of this? And a lot of the time, people haven't thought about this before. And a lot of the time, they need to be supported through answering that question. And there's a whole raft of activities that we do with them around, understanding the motivations, understanding, what their kind of life plan is, what their why is. And loads don't know it. And then you're also going to have a kind of cadre who are interested in what the magic number is. And I'm not knocking that either. And there's various exercises that as Exiteers we do to facilitate some of that thinking. And then we hold up the mirror around a reality check, sometimes on where the founder is and where the business is versus their aspirations. But we don't leave them high and dry and go, oh, you're actually worth 3 mil. You thought it was 30. We will build a roadmap, and we will sit alongside and support from both a personal and a business perspective to make that transition. And that, I think, is the difference. I heard us referred to a recent event as the human corporate finance. And the corporate finance bit, I thought, oh, that's quite funny. But the human bit, I can relate to.
I think being human led, I think, is one of the things that everything that you kind of have talked to me about, like that's been the common thread, is really, and I don't get to, it comes back to that point of really giving a shit about people and wanting to lift other people up around you, I think.
And I think for me, I would like the world to be a better place. And genuinely, my other half rips me the whole time because I would like the world to be like a fucking Christmas movie. Everything perfect. And it isn't, unfortunately.
Give me a example. I think it'd be really interesting for people listening to this to have an example of someone going through that process of, why did I, doesn't have to be a named person, but just like, where did they start? Where did they get to? What was interesting along that work they were doing with you?
Yeah, very happy to. So, there's a number of these in the public domain. But let's talk about Louise, because Louise did take to the stage for us last week at the event. Louise was the first client into the Grafter. So she came in, we'd met or she'd seen me on LinkedIn. And her challenge at that time was she was running a reseller of robotics process automation software into the NHS, and she was doing a decent number at a decent client base, but she wanted some help around the strategy. She wanted to look at mitigating the risk of only working with one RPA provider. And she also wanted to know how to actually build out services and offer those to her clients as her own services rather than reselling other professional services for other companies. And over a 24-month period, we sat alongside the business. We helped her shape up the strategy. We helped her build partnerships wider than just one reseller. We then helped her to reposition from a marketing and brand perspective what they were doing and how they were doing it. We had some brilliant discussions about, does she cast the net wider? And I said, you are synonymous with healthcare, stay in your lane. This is what you're known for. Don't dilute that proposition. And then we helped actually build some professional services out that she took to market. And over that period of time, year one, she wrote £250,000 to the bottom line. Year two, it was probably 3 times that. But along that journey, we helped her maximize the value of the business in building the playbooks, in building the IP, and how she was positioned from a build the sell pack, build the information memorandum, build the data room. And so she announced 24 hours ago on the Grafter community group that she had sold the business, an 8-figure sum to a listed business. And in her own words, at our event, a week ago, she could not have achieved that without the help of the Grafter. So for me, that's a double and a triple whammy, because first client who took a punt on us when I set the business up, female entrepreneur, and we all know that the balance isn't there around male and female entrepreneurs, and bootstrap founder. So what a fucking journey. And I'm absolutely buzzing for her. It's an incredible experience, and now she goes over to a listed business who are investing in that space, and she's taken an MD role. And she will go on to do, even more fantastic things for them.
Incredible. Must be quite a privilege, I guess. Like it's full circle because she took a punt on you so early. But yeah, you must be incredibly proud and privileged to have had such an impact on that journey and just see your hard work as well paying off.
Hugely. And even on the run up to transaction happening, the day of the transaction happening, I was in tears on the phone to her. It's fucking emotional. It's so powerful. It's just magic. Being able to play a part in making some of that a reality is wild.
100%. And what was, I think what's quite interesting, I think, is also, presumably you did quite a lot of work with her. She was looking for an exit. And what exits look like, right? Because I think it's that bag of cash on the table that people think about, but actually there are, many ways to skin a cat. There's, 8 different ways that you can take money out of the business. It's not necessarily a full exit. That can look completely different for each business depending on their needs.
And I think that's part and parcel of why we kick everything off of that business diagnostic, because as we understand a little more about what the personal drivers are, it's that bit that really is essential to thinking through. What is your exit strategy going to be? Because, that will drive, are you selling to private equity? Are you going over for an earn out? Is this a partial exit and take some money off the table and get some investment into the business? Or do you have an incredible management team who are ready to step up and, put in an employee owned trust or a management buyout in place is the right exit? And I think, you've hit the nail on the head. So many people think it's a bag of cash on day one. And it's rarely that, that will play a part in a transaction, but it's more than likely an earn out for a period of time, and you're going to land and you're still going to have to run at a number. And yeah, working people through some of those options, and helping them make the best choice for them is key.
How many of the businesses that you work with are gunning or like have in their mind an exit, or is it more about growth? Like, how does it kind of break down the clients that you've worked with so far?
I'd say most companies, even if they're not coming to us for a discussion about exit, we would be suggesting they do some exit planning, because it just drives building the business in the right way. Majority, I think, are talking about growing revenue at the minute, and growing revenue may well be writing additional number relating to service or product, but it also could be acquiring businesses to drive that revenue or partnerships. Um, but we are actively trying to encourage that people at least start to think about the narrative, map the competitors, because here's the news, they may well be the potential buyer, and start to get at least educated around the different models and the different options.
Hmm. Amazing. Yeah. I think there's so much more to it, I think, than people just are aware. And just having that expertise of a whole team that have been through their own exits, etc., and have that experience of being in the trenches, I think is so important. And just gives you so much more reassurance that, because these are big plays, right? There are millions at stake in a lot of these deals. And so you need to be working with someone that you can trust and has a track record of these things.
Uh, totally. And I think that mapping and matching is really key. So you've got that, sector knowledge, but also, what we often find within the Exiteers pool at the Grafter is there's certain areas where some of us we're all good at lots of different things. There'll be certain areas where we're exceptional. And so we will pull on the expertise to support some of that, and it's key that we've got the right team, and we are also not the answer for every transaction. We have past clients elsewhere if they are a better fit for other companies. So for me, I want the client to get the best outcome.
Mm.
I'm not obsessed with us writing a number. I want them to get the right outcome.
I was going to ask, so we know what the grafter is. What is it not?
So I think that's a really good question. What it is not is building digital services. That was my last two companies. It's not a gun for hire from a BD perspective. It's not a business broker. We don't advertise businesses. We don't take a retainer and advertise businesses for sale in that way. So that's what we're not. What we are is tried, tested, and proven around that growth, raising, acquisition, and exit. And who we work with, we have experience and history working with healthcare, SaaS, agencies, data, and AI. So that's the areas that we know inside out and back to front. and that will continue to grow. I mean, our latest Exiteer, who is coming on at the minute, but her background is sustainability. That's not an area we've worked in before. So we will be casting that net a little wider.
Great. So like looking forward, this is your third business. You've had 2 exits before. I think it's quite interesting because different periods of your life, you have different motivations. The similar events can mean very different things. Like what do you see the next, without sounding like I'm putting you into a job interview, what do the next like 5 or 10 years look like? What is the even shorter term? What do you see the next few years or the next 12 months looking like for Grafter? And what do you see your long-term goal as? Like what is this period of your life about, I guess?
So I think for me, the next 12 months of the Grafter is going international, probably starting with the States. And I want to get that platform, methodology, service everywhere. So for me, I want to make it accessible and I want to get it everywhere. And the US stuff will probably be the first thing out the gate, hopefully, this side of Christmas. I strongly suspect I won't be CEOing the business in the next 12 months because there's better people to do it. And I would love to focus on the strategic opportunities and tooling around on the stage. So that would be my priority. And I think that kind of the strategic bit, by that I mean doing deals internationally to get the business into different countries. And I think for me personally, I've got a feeling that in the next 10 years, things will change pretty dramatically. So I suspect being of service is going to look very different. And that's not me suggesting there's a new business on the horizon or anything, but I just feel, without sounding too hippie, that I'm heading into a very different period for me. And quite what that looks like, I don't know. But oddly, I can feel it a little, and I don't know how better to explain it than that. And I suspect some of that may well be driving why we are in different locations at the minute. It definitely feels like that may be linked. But exactly what it is, who knows? All I know for me is I love the chase. So at 47, I still fucking love the chase. And I love using my brain. And I genuinely think the thought of not working and just dealing with this brain would terrify me. So that isn't happening. And having some adventures and having some fun. And ideally wearing shorts every day of the fucking week. That's what I would like the next 10 years to look like.
Amazing. Well, I am very honoured that you have asked me to interview you, and it's been a right laugh. So thank you very much.
Well, I really appreciate it, mate. And yeah, it's a real privilege having you do the interviewing. So thank you.